What's going on, Michigan fans? It's Clayton Sayfie here with the Wolverine.com with 5 takeaways from Michigan's 49-0 bludgeoning of Michigan State Saturday night in East Lansing. It was a heck of a night. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the thumbs up button here on the YouTube channel if you're watching there. Also, hit the subscribe button as well. Get all of our content and head to the Wolverine.com right now. Become a premium subscriber over to get our message board content, all of our premium updates, everything Michigan football, basketball, and recruiting over at thewolverine.com. Let's start out with our first takeaway, which really is that this was the worst loss in Michigan State history at Spartan Stadium in terms of margin of victory, 49 points. Michigan, decades and decades ago, beat Michigan 55-0. That was their previous worst loss in this rivalry, and it could have been worse as well. You know, there were a couple opportunities. I think Michigan could have kept the starters in longer. No reason to, absolutely, and I think they made the right call. But if you keep your guys in there, that thing's even more lopsided than it was at 49-0. You also could have gone for two. There was some chatter on the message boards about that. Could have gone for two at the end on the last touchdown. End of the first half as well. A little bit of a questionable call on Donovan Edwards moving backwards. They say that he wasn't set, but really you're allowed to move backwards in motion there. Don't have to be set. Also, I thought there were more than 10 seconds left before that 10-second runoff before the half. So basically the point is this was a pick-your-score game, even though coming in you just didn't quite know exactly what to expect in terms of how this game was going to play out. But Michigan had this one from the beginning. Even on that first drive, there's a 3rd and 14. J.J. McCarthy is able to extend the play a little bit, as we've seen so many times this year, and he is becoming absolutely elite at right now at this point in his career, and then finds a guy for a first down. A couple 3rd and longs early on in the game, and Michigan was automatic. When the first team offense was in there, they were 7 of 8 on 3rd down. And this was against a Michigan State defense that had been pretty successful on 3rd down coming in. They ranked number 3rd in the country. It was a little deceiving. Hadn't faced many 3rd downs because teams were having success on early downs. And then also a lot of that 3rd down success came against some pretty porous offenses in Iowa, Rutgers, etc. But nonetheless, it was impressive what Michigan was able to do. That was a really, really hard offense to get off the field, as it has been most of this season. Michigan's starting offense goes 5 touchdowns and 7 drives. One of them was that end of the half drive. As I mentioned, they get all the way down there and probably could have gotten points out of that if it didn't end a little bit differently. If it did end a little bit differently, if they probably got the correct call that they should have gotten, it could have ended differently. So pretty much a flawless performance by the Michigan offense. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. But also with this takeaway, I want to mention the focus that we saw from this Michigan team, because honestly, coming in, you didn't know exactly how things would go. I mean, you have the huge news breaks on Thursday that the NCAA is investigating them for, potential sign-stealing violations, in-person scouting. I think everybody by now knows what has kind of gone on there. But this Michigan team looked, maybe unaffected, but maybe even more motivated by this. You could tell in the post-game press conference talking to some of these guys like Zach Zinter, who's saying like, hey, what more do you want from us? Defense pitched a shutout. We played extremely well. Kind of a little bit of frustration that people are trying to diminish what this Michigan team has done in the past, is doing right now with some of that stuff. So we'll see what comes of that. But on the field, I thought Michigan handled itself as well as it could. I mean, and then some in terms of how you would expect them to come out and play. They seemed fired up. They seemed focused, and I thought they did a great job with that. Second takeaway, this was another road takeover for Michigan. You had to ask yourself going through that game, where'd all the Spartans go? Remember Mark D'Antonio back in 2015 walking up the Big House Tunnel? He says, where'd all the Wolverines go? Where did the Spartans go? Because the Wolverines, he was talking about after that game, right? A stunning last-second play. Michigan fans cleared out after, kind of a stunned silence in there. The Michigan State fans, not a ton of backbone on Saturday night, not a ton of loyalty. They kind of probably knew what was coming, but they clear out quickly. The deep end, what they call their student section, looked like a kiddie pool by midway through the third quarter. Nobody in there, probably more maize and blue that had filtered down from the upper deck, kind of crept closer and closer and was really letting them have it. Let's go Blue chants all over the place. It's the third time this year Michigan's gone on the road. They've won by 38 or more in those games. And it's just one of those things where you become a program at this elite level where you can take over not only neutral games. We've seen the great atmospheres at the last couple bowl games from Michigan fans. We've seen it at the Big Ten championship games, but now you're doing it at away stadiums, and it was really impressive. Talking to a ton of fans that were at the game last night, it seems like they were having the time of their lives out there, and you can't blame them based on what their team did. So where'd all the Spartans go? 49-0, absolute beatdown. Michigan State in shambles right now. Michigan cruising at 8-0 heading into November because the bye's this week, and the next game they'll play will be Purdue in November, the all-important month of the season where Michigan has performed so well over the last couple seasons, set themselves up very nicely going into November this year, with an exclamation point in October being the big win in Spartan Stadium. Takeaway number 3, we got to talk about J.J. McCarthy. We got to talk about J.J. McCarthy, who is now the Heisman frontrunner. The Heisman frontrunner. We'll repeat it because it's worth repeating. J.J. McCarthy, according to basically all the sports books that I've seen, has absolutely taken ascension up in the Heisman race. He's the front runner at this point for a couple reasons, in my opinion. One, he's done everything he's been asked to do, obviously, other than a rough game early on in the year against Bowling Green. But secondly, he's got huge opportunities ahead of him. Penn State, that's going to be a top 10 matchup, most likely, against, on the road. National audience, big noon kickoff will be there. And you're going to have a great chance to impress the rest of the nation. Same thing with the Ohio State game. We know how that goes. Michigan's Heisman Trophy winners have showed up and showed out in that game. Not saying JJ is going to win it, but he's got as good of a shot right now as anybody, really technically a better shot than anybody. But he was spectacular on Saturday night. And it's like you feel like we sit here each and every Sunday and kind of break it down, and we could go through throw after throw and talk about how impressive he was in this game. It's almost, there's a time for that, but really overall, we saw everything in J.J. McCarthy's toolbox on Saturday night. The mobility on the few times that Michigan State did be able to get a guy in the backfield, he gets out of there, and a lot of them were on third down as well. Makes a beautiful pass. The arm strength. Sometimes it feels like pitchers, and this is obviously true, but pitchers in baseball, some nights you have your stuff. Some nights it's got a little more juice to it, got a little bit more mustard. JJ had his stuff on Saturday. He also had that arm strength, basically at the highest level that we've seen him have it. Couple throws just on an absolute rope in between defenders, whizzing by guys, defenders' face masks, and he's able to fit those into tight windows. He was spectacular. He is looking like, I don't think there's anybody playing better right now in college football than J.J. McCarthy. And again, schedule's not been great. Big opportunities ahead. But, you're looking at one of the best players in the country. You're looking at potentially the best team in the country as well, if you take it to a team standpoint. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Have to mention the defense as well, getting the shutout that they so desperately, not desperately needed, they desperately wanted. You could tell the sideline how pumped they were. Jesse Minter with a huge fist pump on that 4th and 15 where Michigan State comes up just short with the backups in there. That's a backup unit that has allowed some points late in games this year, 3-4 times where they could have had shutouts, and they didn't. They allow a touchdown or, a big play. We saw it against Nebraska in other games. Not this time. Michigan defense, you saw the improvement in the last few weeks with the backup offense. We're seeing it with the backup defense now. But, Michigan State couldn't move the ball. We kind of knew they were inept offensively coming into this game, but the Michigan defense did a really, really good job early on in the game, and then the backups are able to close the door at the end. Mike Sainristil still gets his pick six. Second of the year for him. 4th pick six of the season for Michigan overall. Will Johnson has one. Keon Sabb has one. Both of those came in the Minnesota game. The starting Michigan defense has now scored 4 touchdowns. The starting Michigan defense has allowed only 3 touchdowns. Shout out to Drew Hallett over with us at the Wolverine for that stat, which is just unheard of. Through 8 games, Michigan's next game is going to be in November, and the starting defense has scored more touchdowns than it has allowed. So absolutely incredible. Mikey Stainristil, I feel like, is the perfect guy to come up with that play on that night against that team. And, you could tell he was loving it. His teammates were loving it. So good for the Michigan defense for getting their first shutout of the season. And we will move on to our next takeaway. Another group that played fantastic football on Saturday night, the tight ends. Breakout game for Michigan's tight ends. 13 catches, 186 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 of them to Colston Loveland, 1 of them to A.J. Barner. A.J. Barner has his breakout game as an individual. 8 catches, that's a career high. 99 yards, that's a career high. His first touchdown catch as well as a Michigan Wolverine, 5th in his career. And he's been doing so well blocking this year. You felt like he deserved this. And he said he knew this game was coming. And in this offense, it could be any number of guys on any night. And we're kind of seeing that, week by week. It's a different guy every week. And it's good at this point in the season that they've been able to let different guys, and it just comes naturally, as JJ said on Saturday night, but let different guys eat at different points, because when you come to those tough moments, they're going to have a bunch of different options to go to offensively. So A.J. Barner, got to feel good for him getting that breakout game. But going back to that, the combined total, 186 yards for the Michigan tight ends in receiving. Marlon Klein also had an 8-yard reception. That's the first of his career, the sophomore coming in. That's more yards than Michigan State had total in this game, 182. The Michigan tight ends outgained Michigan State in this game. That's how good they were. That's how good. I just felt like Michigan, Sharon Moore and the offensive staff did such a good job of finding the right matchups for those guys and just letting them thrive and letting J.J. McCarthy do what he does best. So it was a masterful display, I thought, by the offensive staff, and can't wait to go back and watch this game a couple times and really look at more of the intricacies. But that was the from the naked eye on Saturday night, the takeaway there. Finally, kind of mentioned it earlier with the JJ stuff, but you're looking at a team that is a true national title contender, as we knew, but really going into November here, again, because the next game will be in November, this looks like the best team in the Big Ten. They've been ranked ahead of the other two giants, you could say, Ohio State and Penn State, all season long, sitting at number 2 in the country behind Georgia. But, given the schedule, Ohio State had a nice win at Notre Dame. Penn State played a little bit of a tougher schedule, maybe, depends on who you talk to. But they've looked impressive at times, a little shaky at other points as well. I think it's pretty clear at this point, even after Ohio State beats Penn State 20-12 on Saturday, that Michigan is still the favorite as we enter into November. They still look like the best team, the most complete team, the deepest team. It's going to be settled on the field soon enough, but I think Michigan looks like that team right now. And you're seeing it too nationally. Not that this stuff matters, but they're sitting at number 2 in the poll. They get 19 now first place votes, Georgia down to 38. Like, people are starting to, a lot of people love to do the thing where it's like, oh, well, it's Georgia's number 1 until proven otherwise. Well, it's a new season, and Georgia's been really good at points. They have a key injury right now, but so is Michigan. They look like the best team that Jim Harbaugh's had. Thought it could be that coming in. You never know until they hit the field. They've hit the field 8 times now, dominated in all of them, 24 plus points in each game. And this still looks like the best team of the Big Ten heading into November. Gonna know soon enough what happens, but it's really exciting for Michigan fans at this point. Again, if you're happy about Michigan's beatdown over Michigan State, hit the like button on this video. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel and head to thewolverine.com for all your content. And we'll see you next time.